All right, welcome into this special edition. If you are tuning in when this is debuting, this is a very significant day on the footballing calendar as we are merely hours away from the English Championship kicking off. You may say, well, what's the English Championship? Well, that's the second tier of English football, with the Premier League being the top tier, the Championship being the second, and then we have League One and League Two kicking off on Saturday, so a mere 24 hours from now, basically. So wanted to do a more in-depth preview show. As we approach this, we'll do another one of these for the Premier League next week, but the focus today is on those three tiers 2, 3, and 4, as you know, even though they aren't the top division, they still have a lot of influence in English football. So first, I felt, given the audience of this channel, I felt like I should explain the pyramid first. So here we go. Here is the pyramid. So you have the Premier League at the top. That is going to be where you want it to be at all times. That's where you're going to make the most money. That's where you're going to play the best competition. That's where you're going to be able to possibly qualify for Europe. The next tier below that is the Championship. So that's the teams that will get relegated. We'll explain promotion and relegation in a second. That is where they will be playing. This is, the next best 22 teams in England, basically. Then you got League One, which is, it's basically the same thing as the Championship, just a tier lower. Then you have League Two, which once again, same thing, just a tier lower. And then with League Two, once you get relegated out of that, you end up in the National League, and now you're in the non-league system. So this is where these players aren't playing football as their full-time jobs, basically. Yes, they're getting paid, but it's not under league structure, would be the best way to say it. So then this continues to break down. We are now in the fifth tier, the National League, which is a larger league. I believe it's 26 teams, somewhere around there. Then you have the sixth tier, which splits into two different leagues. You have a National League North and a National League South. This is where it starts getting a little confusing, so it's better just to, number it by tiers, basically. Then you get to the seventh tier, which has 4 different leagues in that tier. Then once you get to the eighth tier, you have 7 leagues in that tier. And then you get to the 14 regional leagues. And then you get down to the lowest rung of the pyramid. And, it continues to keep going. But I felt the point needed to be ended here with the 20 regional leagues. So this is the table. So you might be saying, well, you use some fancy words there. What do they mean? Like relegation. So here's the explanation. I'll break this down for each league because it's a little bit different in each league. With the Championship, the teams that finish first and second, they're going to get promoted to the Premier League. So that means they're going to move up to the top division. They will be playing all those, massive teams of England, have chances at Europe and all kinds of stuff like that. Teams 3 through 6 are going to qualify for a 4-team playoff, where 3 will play 6 and 4 will play 5 in a home-and-home series. And the winner of that will go on to a final. It's going to be a one-legged playoff final where the winner of that will also be promoted to the Premier League. So 3 teams each year get promoted to the Premier League, which means 3 teams from the Premier League get relegated and brought down to the Championship. So then to balance this out, the bottom 3 finishing teams, so 22, 23, and 24, are going to get relegated to League One, which is the 3rd tier of English football. So if we take a look at League One, once again, it's the top 2 teams that finish, 1 and 2 are going to be promoted to the Championship. 3 through 6 are going to qualify for the same playoff, basically. It's going to be 4 teams once again, 3 versus 6, and then 4 versus 5, 2 legs. the winner on aggregate will move on to the final, which is one leg. Winner of that will get promoted to the championship. But here in League One, it's a little bit different, as it's not the bottom 3 teams, it's the bottom 4 teams that are going to get relegated here. So then teams 21 through 24 will get relegated to League Two, which means that they will be playing in the 4th tier of English football. So taking a look at League Two, this time we have teams 1, 2, and 3 will get automatic promotion to League One, compared to the other 2 leagues only being 1 and 2. Then you'll have 4 through 7 facing off in a playoff, another 4-team playoff, where the winner will get promoted to League One. And then unlike the other leagues, only 2 teams are going to get relegated here, and they get relegated to the National League, which, as we just explained, was non-league football. So getting relegated from the English Football League, which is technically considered the 4 top pieces of the pyramid. Once you get relegated from that, that has major financial implications. It causes some clubs to just go into an absolute free fall, end up, just disappearing basically. So the main goal is not to get relegated from the English Football League. So given that, I felt like that was a pretty decent explanation of the championship. Gives you an idea of what we're looking at for this year. I think there's going to be a lot of good football in all 4 leagues, including the Premier League. Like I said, we'll get to that next week when we are closer to the start of their season. But I've always believed that the most entertaining league in football, not the best league because they don't have the best players, but the most entertaining league is the championship. You have teams that in the previous year were facing off. You have some teams that were facing off against Premier League teams, and you have some teams that are now facing off against League Two teams, so the 4th tier. So like if you think about it that way, you have teams that got promoted from League One that were facing teams that got relegated from League One, and then you're facing a team that got relegated from the Premier League. It's a big mix of everything here, and including that, you got a lot of different wage budgets. Like this year, we're going to get into the teams in a second with my official predictions. You have Leicester City, who have the biggest wage budget in the championship, right around £50 million, versus Plymouth Argyle, who just got promoted from League One. They played there last year. They finished 2nd. Ipswich Town finished 1st. We'll get into all of that. They have Plymouth Argyle have a transfer, or not a transfer budget, a squad budget of just above £2 million. So there's usually disparity there. And you might be saying, well, it must be like difficult for a team to go from like the 5th tier to the Premier League, basically. Like that's just going to be an insurmountable task given, all these leagues basically. Well, we have a good example of that in the Premier League this year. We'll get into them next week, the major talking point of the season. But Luton Town, just 10 years ago, actually 11 years ago, I should say, they were playing in the 5th tier of English football. They were in the National League. They slowly made their climb up. A double promotion, I believe it was, from the National League I believe it was from League Two to League One, was a double promotion year. So they moved up to the championship, spent a few years building up in the championship, and last year they win the playoff final and now are playing in the Premier League. That is the major success story of this promotion and relegation system, which makes it so entertaining. It gives you, if you're a fan, you at least have the chance to one day be playing amongst the giants of English football. But if you are a giant of English football, that means your stay at the top isn't always going to be there. I mean, kind of just thinking back a little, Aston Villa 10 years ago were one of the 6 teams, I believe it is, that had never been relegated from the Premier League. The Premier League had only been around since 91. That's a whole nother story for another day about the formation of the Premier League. But they were one of those teams that were never relegated. So for 20 plus years, they won a European Cup in the 80s. And, you know, they were just one of those mainstays in the top tier. Well, mismanagement after mismanagement in the mid-2010s led to eventually their relegation after just an utterly awful year. And then they spent, I believe it was 3 or 4 years in the championship before they got promoted back to the Premier League. And now you see them, they finished 7th last year. They're playing in European football this year. You know, it just shows that the tiers are a huge part of this system of English football. So given that explanation of the table and promotion and relegation, all that goes along with it, I think it is finally time to unveil my official predictions for this year, for the championship, for League One, and for League Two. And I feel like we should start off with the one that is starting today, and that is the championship. So here it is, officially my predictions for this year's championship. So in first, we have Leicester City going up, winning the title, going back to the Premier League. We have Middlesbrough finishing second in the other promotion spot, automatic promotion. Then we have Sunderland finishing in third, Southampton finishing in fourth, Norwich City finishing in fifth, and to round out the playoff, we have Coventry City finishing in sixth. West Brom finishing seventh, Leeds United finishing eighth, Millwall finishing ninth, Stoke City finishing 10th, Hull City finishing 11th, Watford 12th, Blackburn Rovers finishing 13th, Swansea City at 14, Ipswich Town coming off promotion finishing 15th, Preston North End in 16th, Bristol City 17th, Birmingham City 18th, 19th Cardiff City, 20th Huddersfield Town, 21st Plymouth Argyle, and getting relegated, I believe, 22nd Queen's Park Rangers, 23rd Sheffield Wednesday, and 24th Rotherham United. So I feel like now I should give an explanation for most of the decisions here. I think Leicester City, they're easily the team that should go up the quickest out of the 3 that have been relegated from the Premier League this past year. You know, they have lost a few key pieces, mainly James Maddison and Harvey Barnes. That's obviously going to be a huge impact for them, but they still have a pretty decent squad around them, and I think that's going to make them major championship contenders in the championship, obviously. At worst, I think they can finish in a playoff spot. I don't see them spending another year in the championship. I believe they will go right back up to the Premier League after this season. In second, I kind of debated here. I think there's about, I'd say 3 different teams that I think can finish second, and they finish second, third, and fourth. Those 3 teams, obviously. But I picked Middlesbrough as the second team to get automatic promotion here. I think they're better set up right now to go up right now. They stumbled their way through the end of the season. They could have easily got automatic promotion last year. I like the philosophy that's being built there by Michael Carrick. I think, they're a really good squad. I think they can contend for the title also. I just think Leicester might be in a league of their own this year. And I think they're going to go up this year after a few seasons of, coming close but not getting enough there. In third place, I have Sunderland. I don't think they have the power to win the title, but I think they have the power to finish second and gain automatic promotion. But it's more about, can they get there, because there were struggles last year. A main striker being healthy the whole year was a major, major problem for them. I mean, in the whole second half of the year, Ahmed Diallo basically carried them with goal scoring, and he was a loanee from Manchester United. He is back in Manchester now, so he's not with them this year. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what they do this year. They have a very young squad that now has experience under their belt, made the playoff last year. I think that they can do it again. If I had to pick out of these four, I think that they can make the playoff final. I believe that they would be facing the team in fourth, which is Southampton. We'll get to that in a second. Like I said, they have the power to get promoted this year. I feel like it might be one more year for them just getting development. But then the question is, if it's one more year in the championship and, these young players keep showing out and making, great plays and upping, their, I don't remember the word I'm looking for here, but, if they make themselves more available to other clubs, somebody might swoop in and purchase them, and then this has all been for nothing for Sunderland, and, they don't go up. I think this might be the year that they have to get it done, but we'll see. I have Southampton finishing fourth, the other team that got promoted, or relegated, I should say, last year. They once again, James Ward-Prowse still on the team, so that really helps them, I think. I don't know if he's going to stay the whole year. I don't think he will, but you never know. But I still think that, once again, kind of like Leicester, the playoffs is the worst that's going to happen to them. I think they have a more chance of staying down than Leicester do. But I think that they're a good shout for finishing fourth. In fifth, I said I had Norwich City. They had a very unusual performance for them last year, finishing, I believe it was 10th. They're usually contending for promotion, whether it be automatics or playoffs. I think they'll get back to that this year. Their first full year under David Wagner. I think he's going to do a good enough job to get them to the playoffs. I don't think it's going to be enough to get them back to the Premier League, though. And then in sixth, with the last playoff spot, I have Coventry City, who coincidentally finished in the same spot last year. They finished in the playoffs, believe they were number 6. And I still think that they have a good enough team left to get back to the playoffs. I don't think that they're going to get promoted again. They made the championship playoff final this year. They lost to Luton Town on penalties. I think that they can make the playoff once again. I think that they can make the final once again. I don't know if they have enough to get over that hump. We'll skip through a few here. I do have an 8th, Leeds United. Got relegated last year. I don't see them even making the playoffs this year. I think this is going to be a really tough year for them. A lot of uneasiness with the squad. There's some players that have already left, whether it be loan or sold. There's other players that seem to be on their way out. I don't really know what kind of squad's being built right now for Daniel Farke, the manager that they just hired what feels like a few weeks ago after the new ownership came in, which was 49ers Enterprise, which are the owners of the San Francisco 49ers. I think this is going to be a tough year for them, and I don't even see them getting playoffs. So I think it's going to be another tough year for them. Hull City in 11th. I feel like Hull City can finish anywhere between, playoffs and battling relegation. They're kind of a weird team, so I kind of just put them in the middle there. a lot can happen throughout a season. I think out of these teams, they're the best shout of an underdog making the playoff. But like I said, they could be in the playoff. They could be battling relegation. They're kind of a hard team to read this year. We have Blackburn Rovers in 13th, a team that always seems to get so close to getting to the playoffs and then just fall apart. Now under financial troubles that they're starting to sell players off. They've been dealing with Tottenham for the past few weeks about a defender that has a release clause kicking in when you're watching this today. That brings his price down to £2 million. So, big sell-off has been happening with Blackburn Rovers, and I think that's going to be obviously a big problem for them this year and will struggle with their finishing position. The highest finishing promoted team from last year, I have Ipswich Town finishing 15th. I've seen a lot of predictions that have Plymouth finishing, top 12. I don't think that can happen. I honestly think Plymouth might struggle this year, which is why I have them battling relegation at 21. I don't see them doing quite well. And that's why I think Ipswich Town are probably going to be the best team here from League One last year. That's why I think they're going to finish the highest out of the three. In 17th, we have Bristol City. That can easily change if Alex Scott, who is one of the best young players in English football right now, gets sold. It seems like every other day it's something new if he's getting sold or not. So it's really only a matter of time until we find out that answer. If he gets sold, I feel like they could go lower. If he stays, I think they can finish higher. It's really that weird line, I'd say. Then you have in 18th Birmingham City. Nothing really much to say. I think that they could be battling relegation this year, but it was just announced yesterday that Tom Brady has taken minority ownership of Birmingham City. So that's, a pretty big deal for Americans, I guess. We have in 20th Huddersfield Town, of course, managed by the legend Neil Warnock. If this is his final run, which I would assume that it is, there's no way that he's getting relegated this year with this Huddersfield Town team. Even though they will be battling relegation, I don't think that they will actually get relegated. And then in 22nd, QPR, just a really, really rough preseason. Garrett Ainsworth, their manager, first full season under him. Think he's going to really struggle with this squad. I think it's going to end up with them being relegated from the Championship and going down to League One. Sheffield Wednesday, I don't see them staying up. They've had a rough summer after getting promoted. And Rotherham, basically, were lucky to not get relegated last year, and I think that they'll finish bottom this year. So given that's the predictions for league, or the championship, I should say. So now we'll move down the ladder again, down the pyramid. Take a look at the League One predictions. So finishing first, I have Bolton Wanderers. Second, Derby County. Third, Portsmouth. Fourth, Charlton Athletic. Reading in fifth. Peterborough United in sixth. Blackpool seventh. Barnsley eighth. Oxford United ninth. Lincoln City 10th. Wycombe Wanderers in 11th. Leyton Orient in 12th. Bristol Rovers 13th, Wigan Athletic 14th, Fleetwood Town 15th, Shrewsbury Town 16th, Northampton Town 17th, Stevenage 18th, Burton Albion 19th, Exeter City 20th, and of course now we get into the relegation as there's 4 teams relegated in League One. Cheltenham Town 21st, Port Vale 22nd, Cambridge United 23rd, and Carlisle United in 24th. I think it's going to be a two-horse race for the title this year between Bolton Wanderers and Derby County. I feel like people say that every year about Derby County, and then they finish in the playoff every year. And I think that this is finally the year they get re-promoted to the championship. I don't think they'll finish in first. I think that will be Bolton Wanderers. I like what they're building there. They were, I believe, on the brink of expulsion from League Two only a few years ago. So for them to be at this point, really big for their club. A club that was in the Premier League 20 years ago. I mean, even 10 years ago, I think. It might be a little bit over 10 years now. But I think they finally get re-promoted once again back to the championship. Coming out of this playoff, I think it's going to be a Portsmouth-Reading final. And I think Portsmouth can get it done. I think they'll win this playoff final. And I believe that they will be that third team going up next year. Blackpool and Barnsley, I think those two will be fighting all year for at least a playoff spot and promotion. I think there's too many good teams right now in League One at that top that they may just get left out, which obviously is a problem. But I think that they'll end up staying down another year. Leyton Orient, the highest finishing team that got promoted from last year's League Two. I think that they have a real good shot at, finishing in the top half. I think they have a decent enough squad to do that. I don't think that there will be relegation candidates. As we move down, Wigan Athletic, of course, they were on the brink of just disappearing as a club as a whole. I mean, that was during the COVID period, I think. Rough time for them. They, I believe, their owners became the fans of the club, or part owners, something like that. Now they're trying to get back basically to where they were. I mean, they won the FA Cup now 10 years ago, and now they're sitting in League One. I don't think this is a year for them to compete for promotion. It's just going to be another year in League One for them. And then the four, I don't really think there's a huge argument about who's going down. I think it's going to be a mixture of these four. I think you can possibly throw Exeter City in a fight there, in a scrap. But I think it's going to be these four that go down. And then finally, we went a little bit more in depth with the championship, but a little less with League One. But League Two, I feel like, has one of the more intriguing storylines, especially for American fans this year, as it was Wrexham that finished top of the National League last year, got promoted. They're owned by Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. This is their first year back in league football since 2006, so 15, 16 years, somewhere around there. So this should be an interesting run for them. And joining them from last year is Notts County. And as you notice, with my predictions, I think they finish once again 1-2. But I think compared to last year, this year it's going to be Notts County finishing in first. They had a really good year last year and barely made it to the League Two because they had to go through a playoff, because only first place gets automatic promotion in the National League. And then I believe it's spots like 2 through 7 or 2 through 8. I believe it's 2 through 7 go to a playoff. So for them to make it all the way through that playoff and make it to League Two, I think that gives them a real good shot at winning this league. And same with Wrexham. I mean, those two teams they spend more than the others, and I think that's going to pay off for both of them. I think both of them are really, really, really good candidates for a double promotion this year. And then I have Stockport County finishing in third. If these two weren't in the Premier League, I think Stockport County would be topping the league this year. Then you have everybody's least favorite team in England, MK Dons, given their whole controversy about how they became a club. I have Grimsby Town finishing in fifth, Salford City finishing in sixth, and Bradford City finishing in seventh. I think it would honestly be a great story if Bradford City get promoted here, so I'm going to pick them out of those four to go up. I think they could face Grimsby in the final at Wembley, and I think it would be great if either of those teams go up, but I think it might be Bradford City here is the better story. Then you have Gillingham in 9th, Barrow in 10th, Doncaster Rovers in 10th, I should say, Mansfield Town 11th, Colchester United 12th, Swindon Town 13th, Walsall 14th, Accrington Stanley 15th, 16th, Tranmere Rovers, 17th, Sutton United, 18th, Forest Green Rovers. Now, that's a little bit controversial there, given that, they were relegated last year from League One, so theoretically they should be, near the top for next year. I just don't see it happening. I think they're going to take a major step back this year. Then you have Crewe Alexandra in 19th, Wimbledon in 20th, Morecambe in 21st, Newport County 22nd, Harrogate Town finishing in a relegation spot in 23rd, and Crawley Town finishing rock bottom in 24th. 92 out of 92. I think Crawley Town has had just an absolutely terrible past year and a half. They became under ownership from like a American crypto company, and just keeps getting worse and worse. I think that's going to be a big problem for them. I feel like they went through 6 or 7 managers last year too. And I don't see them being viable here in League Two. I think that they'll get relegated to non-league football. Morecambe, they had to cancel preseason friendly earlier because they didn't have enough players. I think that they can also be relegation candidates. They were only in League One last year, I think it was. They were in League One, and then they lost a lot of players this offseason, obviously. One of them being Cole Stockton. That's a major, major loss for them. And I think they're going to be relegation candidates this year. I think it sucks for them, but, you're going from playing, third tier football, and you might be in the 5th tier come next year. So that's your predictions for League Two. This is just my thoughts on the league. So hopefully you enjoyed this video of my Championship, League One, and League Two predictions. If you just stumbled across this video because, it's the first day of the Championship and you said, wow, I enjoyed this video, subscribe, tell anybody you know about this video. And hopefully you enjoyed it. And thank you so much for watching.